back to the CQQC Podcast. My name's Gabe, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Bryan and Nate. And we have a very special guest, long-awaited episode. We're calling him our super fan of the CQQC Podcast. It's Alex Scherger. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad.
Good. So for those that aren't familiar with Scherger, do you want to give a quick synopsis or a summary of your Quidditch background, Quidditch career, your illustrious career?
So I started at the University of Waterloo. My roommates at the time helped found the team, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to kind of dive in full from there. So I played there for 3 seasons. Went on to play for Valhalla for 2 seasons upon finishing up at Waterloo. And I was in Toronto for a massage college. So that's sort of what brought me there. And yeah, just it made sense to go with Valhalla. That was really, I guess, the only option anyway, unless I was kind of like playing extra time as an alumni. I already did 1 alumni lap for Waterloo. And then I was able to move to Spain for a year with my partners. I played with Buckbeak Riders there. Sprinkling of MLQ and QPL, 2 seasons with Rochester Whiteout, 2017-2018. Got very familiar with the nice pine on the bench, but learned a lot there. It was a very valuable experience. And QPL with Amsterdam Pride in the Euro division, which I can talk more about later. And then back for 1 half season, I guess, the pre-COVID kind of thing with Valhalla. Yeah. And European games with Team Spain as well while I was there. So that was really cool. I was very fortunate to be able to represent on that level there.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's quite the career. Lots of experience there. So on the note of Spain, one of the questions we had we wanted to kind of touch base on was can you maybe touch more on kind of what your experience was like in Spain? I know that you had in the Canadian Quidditch Alliance Facebook group, you had made a couple posts, I think, about like playing in Spain and like kind of getting awareness about the European games. You maybe want to talk a little bit about that more?
Okay, yeah. So Spain had a lot of parallels to Quidditch Canada, I found. A lot of just kind of same either structural components or issues. Like they had, when I played their nationals, it was an 11-team tournament. And I think they had about 15 teams in the league at the time, but a few couldn't attend due to, I think, usually just roster issues. Maybe they're not enough to fulfill the gender requirements. And there was sort of like distinct tiers, kind of like we see here at nationals. But they also had like regional play going on. Their season is a little bit, I guess, ahead of ours in terms of they have their nationals in November usually. And then in the new year, from like January to April, they do their seasonal, like regional league play. And then they use that for the seedings for the nationals. So that is pretty interesting because you get some nice like rivalries and you play. Yeah, I think you play every team at least 2 or 3 times, and usually one team has like a bye week. My team in Buckbeak Riders in Valencia, they used to play in their own region, but some other teams folded and disappeared. And then they were going to play with Madrid, but the 2 Madrid teams decided to part ways, and one went north, one went south. So my team was sort of stuck on their own, and the resolution was to go play in Catalonia, which has a separate NGB. So they have like Barcelona Eagles and a few other teams up there. So we actually started competing in their league play, and I believe we won it. I can't keep track because I missed a series. But it was one of those things where the Catalonia Nationals had only 3 teams, and we went for exhibition. I went to ref, and then the winner got to go to the European Quidditch Championship for Catalonia. So pretty great odds going into a tournament knowing you have a 33% chance of representing your country. Like
Guarantee medal. Like right there.
Yeah.
You're on the podium. So where is Catalonia? Like I know that they have like their own NGB like you mentioned, because I've seen like the film for IQA World Cup. But like where is that? Is that within like a distinct region of Spain? Like just like
yeah. It's like a northeastern province.
Like closer to like the France area of Spain.
Yes, yeah, bordering France. Up Barcelona's there. That's like the main city. And yeah, they existed before Quidditch Spain, or the AQE, the Association of Quidditch de España. So because of that, I think it sort of allowed them to stay independent. They have a few distinct things as well too. Like they do a handshake hug line before the games, and I'm trying to think what else.
I approve of that, barring the COVID like exception that's currently going on. But like, nice.
Well, yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do in soccer. Like they do, it's usually before, and I mean, sometimes they do it after, like a little more like more informal. But like usually in football, I guess it's called there. Like they do the handshakes before the game as opposed to like after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Makes sense. Is there any other like? I know I've heard that. And I've watched a lot of Quidditch, especially Eastern Canada Quidditch. I've watched a lot of MLQ Quidditch. I should watch more Western Quidditch from Canada. I'm trying. I can't say I've watched a ton of European Quidditch, but like I've heard that like there's the in the same way that like football or soccer fans out there. They have their like chants and stuff. Is it the same thing like in Spain and Catalonia region with that?
I didn't notice it as much there. Mm-hmm. Like there's a bit of that. I would say that's a lot bigger with teams like Germany, or like club teams from those countries like Germany, Ireland, maybe Austria, Turkey. Turkey is really big for that. Mm-hmm. And I think just, if you get a European games or European Quidditch Championship, the club tournament, there's, 32 teams at their Div 1 currently. And so, there's people sort of, by the time it's like semis or onwards, everyone's packed into the stadium and people sort of pick a team to root for, whether they have any attachment to that team or not. So it gets pretty hype in that regard.
Nice. So you talked about the like Spain part going to Europe. What's European Games exactly? Is that just like champion
World Cup basically, but for Europe? So it's on the off year of World Cup. It's national teams. It's run by the IQA. They even had a Scotland team. Scotland has their own NGB that usually just sort of follows under Quid UK, but then they were allowed to participate in European games. I'm guessing in that regard, since it's IQA, they probably would be able to do World Cup too.
Mm-hmm. So it's not like national like level like Pan Am's is. It's club based.
No. European Games is Pan Am's. Like they counter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, European Games is that national teams.
Yeah.
No like qualifier or anything. Just every team that can come. And I don't like. They probably had some sort of a like World Cup ranking used for the draws. But then, of course, there's just some randomization. Like some pools are going to be a little more stacked than the others.
Makes sense.
And then the European Quidditch Championship happens every year, and that's really what's helping European Quidditch explode and why we're seeing such great improvement is that is like their U.S. Quidditch Cup or their Canadian Nationals, but it's for the top several teams from each country, club teams. So, and like I'm just using club synonymously because some of them are university teams or whatever.
Yeah.
That's where you see your Paris Titans, your Werewolves of London, Metu Unicorns from Turkey, Vienna Vanguards, whoever. So my team in Spain unfortunately didn't qualify, but I went to the second division, which is also great for like developing things, especially in smaller like emerging areas for Quidditch. So I was staying with the third place Spain team that qualified for Division 2, and I went as a non-playing ref, and that was super fun.
Sick. Once again, soccer reference to like Champions League, if you know what that is.
Oh man, I'm pretty bad for soccer.
I don't know a lot either, but it's like I think that's like the best teams from each league go against each other, and it's really just like the English Premier League, the French team, and then like Spanish and Italian teams just beat and Germany beat the living like everything out of each other. But okay,
yeah, that's about. I would say that's right. And the thing is, though, this is just like a 1 weekend, 2-day, or pretty high stakes tournament. Like day 1 is usually pool play, and then day 2 is your bracket. So probably like 3 to 4 games day 1, and then if you go all the way day 2. And I think Europe, if I'm not mistaken, they're pretty big on like playing out the constellation brackets like we do in Canada too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as I guess ruthless as like the US Quidditch Cup where you lose, you're out, too bad kind of thing, right? So
what about the QPL? I was watching some of the videos for the podcast about the QPL. I guess like the championship weekend and like seeing like some of the production stuff that they do. Like, do you want to maybe talk about some of the like I forgot the name of the production company, but they were awesome. Was
it Cheers Mate?
Yeah, that's it. Cheers Mate. Yeah. They did a fantastic job. So maybe want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, QPL definitely has great production for their championship league weekend. Like I think a lot of their funding goes into it, and they've got a lot of good sponsorships and connections. So almost all the jerseys have like X sponsor or Y, Z, whatever, right? So that's certainly cool to see because I don't think, other than like the apparel companies, you don't really see that in Quidditch jerseys in North America.
Right.
And yeah, that it's like QPL is basically kind of modeled after MLQ. Yeah. Started in the UK, and then when I was there 2019, they branched out into a European division. But the UK has several divisions, just like MLQ, and they're all based on your locale for most instances, like different recruitment radiuses. So usually the London is kind of like the powerhouse.
Yeah.
And then any teams that have like members of usually like the Velociraptors, so kind of like the Valhalla of the UK, wherever those players are. I think it's usually like East Midlands now. It used to be West Midlands. They're strong too. But yeah, the European division was essentially like a fantasy style because they did a draft because the players were from all over and it just wasn't feasible to have practices. We'd have maybe like Friday night if your plane or bus or train or whatever arrived in time. We'd have a Friday night quick practice for the Saturday series type thing. But it was basically just a true kind of, come together, build the chemistry as quickly as you can. So I think that probably had a big impact on how the European teams did at the championships, playing these UK teams that are probably training a lot more in the summer. So it was kind of like practice with your normal club teams if they're still practicing in the summer, which a lot of teams are in Europe. And then, we'll come together and basically in the Euro division, you're facing teams and players that are under the same circumstances of everyone just kind of showing up and giving it their all. So,
what about? I know that one of the things that kind of stood out to me was how they did like the. I remember Meredith, when Meredith came to Queens, she talked about it a little bit from her experience. But when they have like the upper and lower bracket, like how, I'm trying to explain this. Like how did you feel playing in that kind of system? Like, do you think that kind of having the lower bracket kind of you felt like the competition was kind of like whatever, it's the lower bracket, who cares? Or do you think that like having the two different brackets was actually kind of beneficial in the sense that those teams still had something to they could kind of play towards? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, first off, I just have to disclose that I wasn't actually there for the championships. I was back in Canada at that point, which was a huge bummer. I missed the final series of like the final fixture of the three. Right. And their fixtures were like Saturday. I think we had 5. Hold on a second. Let me count. Paris, Lille, Amsterdam, my team, Cologne, and Brussels. So there was 5 teams in the Euro division, and the fixture would be Saturday, and you play every team. So you get 4 games, which definitely made it worthwhile. I missed the third fixture and then the championships, unfortunately. But I think having that upper and lower bracket were great, and it was based on your season standings. So like my team, Amsterdam Pride, in the pink jerseys, like it came down to a crazy tiebreaker for them to qualify for upper bracket. Like just one of those things you wouldn't in the moment think mattered. Like it was, I don't know if it was a goal or a snitch catch or something, and just a super close tiebreaker to put us into the upper bracket. So I think it gave maybe more equitable outcomes in the tournament, and I think maybe that would be something for like a QC Nationals to look towards. It's tough with East and West being further apart, but maybe even just general tournaments, if there was some way to kind of like pre-seed the teams in advance. So yeah, I don't know. We might not have the numbers to do it, but or like the structure. But yeah, it was I think a great thing overall.
So you probably listened to each of our podcasts like 3 times, making up most of our viewer base. But like, I've referenced my stupid catchphrase of "trial by fire" so many times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And in my mind, like you think about it, it's like, okay, you want to get like there's no substitute for real gameplay in Quidditch. So you can run drills. Watching film is super important. I like stress that completely. That's totally an important thing to understand and how to develop. But there's no real replacement for playing the game. Do you think having that split division and having kind of a more like equitable landscape of like going through a tournament, like if you have the top team in the league, let's say from London, beating some, I don't know, one of the Northern England teams or one of the wherever teams, it doesn't serve much purpose. So do you think like having that really helps players develop, not just create equal like matchups? Or do you think it's... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say so. For something that's kind of like the culmination of the season, definitely I would say so. And like, again, I don't know if you can equate it exactly to like a QC Nationals or USQ Cup or whatever, but these, pretty much all these players are going to get beat up by the top teams during their regular season. Because I don't think the UK has college community split yet, or they're like kind of doing it informally. I reffed the British Quidditch Championship in 2019, and they didn't have the split yet, and it was just kind of the same old story like you see here. And I feel like I've seen rumors in some of the forums about maybe there being, if not the actual plan, just everyone's thinking it's a good idea for USQ to maybe do like a D1, D2 split, especially since they have so many college teams.
And they have good, like, there's teams in the college, like U Texas, UTSA, Cal is great, NYU. Like, there's there's a division within the college ranks as well. Like there are really good, legitimate college teams who compete for the U.S. Quidditch Cup every year, and they're like, yeah, they can compete against a bunch of teams. Maybe they wouldn't be like the top 4 or 8 or whatever, but they can compete. But then you face them against some of the lower competition, and that wouldn't stand up. But yeah. Also on the topic of like trial by fire, do you think like having those players just go in there, like here's 3 rookies or like 2 rookies and like somewhat of a vet, and have them just kind of figure it out? Do you think that's beneficial, or would you kind of want to like spread out rookies, or like in the same way of like if you're working with a new beater partner, do you think it's just like do I just want to try as much stuff as I can? Like, am I just we're gonna try this, we're gonna try that, see what works, and if it doesn't work, we abandon it and try something else. But
yeah, I mean, we had to do a lot of that sort of trial by fire in the Euro division, and especially with my team. I was one of the more experienced beaters, so I was sort of helping coach a lot of newer beaters, and I think like they had the initiative of signing up for the league in the first place. They had tryouts, but it was sort of like come if you can type thing. And the tryouts were just for the GMs who drafted the teams to get a good look at people they didn't know. There wasn't, because based on numbers, there were no cuts or anything. So certainly, it probably would have been nicer to see a lot more of the European players, especially the big names. A lot of big names that have sat out that summer, but the players that did come out, they had great initiative and they were like sponges. Kind of, shout out to Darren Bell, who just always seems to absorb everything. He's always thrilled to learn more and stuff. So that was nice to see for sure. I think a lot of players, maybe their teams were newer teams or teams with like coaches that are maybe just, solely a chaser, so the beaters are kind of left to figure out things on their own. So it was a rewarding opportunity, and we saw lots of growth, even much quicker than you would expect, like from one fixture to the next. You have a player that's like, oh, I don't know if I want to trust this player in the big moment, and now you've got him on and he's perfectly comfortable and doing like above and beyond the expectations. So
absolutely.
I have a question.
Shout out Needless Talaman. That's the beater I had in my head for this specific question.
So I have a question in relation to that in some sense. So like with the Quidditch Canada League, do you think implementing some sort of set schedule at the start of the season would help like the development of rookies by getting them more game time? Knowing that you'll have more games to play before like regionals and going into nationals, and if so, how do you think we could like implement that?
I think it could help. I always worry about the numbers, and how like will people be committed to playing the same team several times over, or like I think it could be helpful. I don't know how to do it. I haven't given it a ton of thought, but I think it's just someone has to make the decision, and then people are just along for the ride, kind of thing, kind of like, I guess, very tangentially how I feel about the name change. Like this has been discussed for like 4 or 5 years, if not longer. Someone just change the name. Nobody's gonna leave because of the name change, and then we can get our bags.
Yeah.
Get on ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Oh yeah, Ocho all day.
So yeah, mate, I think like if there was some sort of like regional mini league, I think you'd want to almost run it like a tournament in terms of each team is going to get at least 3 games on the Saturday if it's a 1-day thing, or 3 to 4 games Saturday and 2 to 3 on a Sunday if you make it a 2-dayer, which would be cool. I'm more of a fan of just grind it out on the Saturday and then have the social, like make Quidditch fun again. So I think that's something missing, and Europe really does it a lot better. I mean, I haven't been to like Pan Am's or USQ Cup or anything. MLQ Championships is fun, but that's sort of like a different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of build on that. Like I can't remember what episode it was. But we did talk about like the different like league structures, and the kind of common denominator that came up a lot was just the idea of numbers and like making sure that we have enough teams committed, because that often ends up being the downfall of a lot of tournaments. It's just like we'll have teams commit and then they're like last minute like, oh, we can't do it and whatever because of numbers. So like there was I'm trying to think, was the mini series approach, I think, was one of them, like where we had like, or not mini series, like a super series, like kind of like what MLQ did. And then like the idea of like what Bryan was saying earlier with like, I don't think it would work in Canada just because we don't have the teams, but like having like a D1 and like having a certain like structure that way where you have the different like divisions. And I think I only really kind of introduced the idea of like the promotion or relegation just because like I love watching soccer and like that's a huge thing in Europe. But maybe down the line when we have more teams, obviously. But is there any like of those like out of those systems that you think, given the numbers and given that we have the commitment, that you think would probably I don't want to say probably, but like kind of seems like it would work best?
I'd also just want to point out, I think, assuming any of this, like hypotheticals, let's assume that we can find people who are willing and able to organize stuff properly. Yeah. Like we as a community, there are people who do it and they do amazing jobs. I suck at stuff like that and I don't think I could, and I want to help with that. And if we can get people doing that, awesome. But like, assuming we can have people sort out like, hey, we can get like a field somewhere in Kingston or Hamilton or Guelph or whatever. Assuming we have that, like that's
yeah. Yeah, I think some sort of like super series or like fixture kind of thing, and then maybe you have like say 3 or 4 teams there on the Saturday, and then maybe even have like day 2 is like a fantasy scrimmage type thing, or like a general practice, or have some community teams face off, and then these college teams, university teams can work on reffing or something. It's hard to say. I will just point out to the QPL championship with the Div 1 and the Div 2. They did Div 2 on the Saturday and then Div 1 on the Sunday, which I thought was cool. So then you had like refs of Div 1 playing in Div 2 and vice versa. I thought it was a nice like kind of a climactic finish too.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Okay, let's kind of switch gears a little bit then. So we talked a lot about kind of your experiences in Europe and with MLQ and QPL and whatnot, but let's kind of talk more about like how maybe Quid Canada like relates based on your experiences from the other international programs and just seeing what else is out there. Is there anything that you think we might be able to add or build upon in like QC that you kind of saw in Europe or in MLQ that you think might be kind of beneficial for like Quidditch Canada as a whole?
Again, I haven't ever been like in a major Quidditch Canada role, so I don't know if there's some stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not fully aware of. But like Spain, for instance, had a few small partnerships, like the everyone got a t-shirt and a hat from the place that hosted the Spain Nationals, things like that. And there was like a lot of times if a tournament's at like a field community center type thing in Spain, there'll be like free accommodation in the gym, so everyone would bring like air mattresses and things to sleep on too, which is kind of a fun social thing, big sleepover in the gym before the tournament.
That's cool.
I know Germany has, I might be misquoting it, but there's like a ton of teams in Germany, I think probably close to like 50 now, and it's not a huge geographic country like Canada, so there's little regions everywhere with teams, and they have got great kind of like regional league play and all these great budding rivalries. They're German nationals. I think there's honestly like at least 10 teams that could win it.
Nice.
Where if you look at USQ, even though with all the teams they have, there's probably not 10 teams. There's maybe like 4 that you say it's like definitely going to be one of these 4, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Germany gets these like community, I don't know if it's like municipal or provincial or whatever, but they have this sponsorship come in where they'll get like free or cheap practice facilities at their local community centers. And that's just really helped for growth and recruitment. I think the community's really embraced the inclusivity of it all too. So I think just hammering home with those partners, and then for like community teams too that in Canada that have more freedom, since we're not attached to a university, like we just have to sell ourselves to whoever will give us money or anything. I mean, even if it's just like, hey, you get a discount at our pub, like what the Stormcrows have, something like that. It's a great first step. So that's sort of the big thing. Let me see if I jotted anything else down for this question. Yeah, I think that's kind of about it. And I think just maybe trying to find ways to maybe remove any barriers that might prevent people from trying things, especially on like the financial end. Because like Quidditch is not a super expensive sport, but then when you start thinking about tournaments and this and that, right? So as a community, I think we need more of, if it's an overnight, like offer accommodation for people if you can host. Because like there might be people that would be interested in Quidditch, but if they can just go like shoot hoops or kick a soccer ball around, maybe that's better for their sort of position.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's I think about all of my thoughts for that question.
Cool. Oh, that's great. What else we got here? Yeah. So we had you're considered to be one of the leaders in the game when it comes to sort of pushing the fitness and training. I see you're wearing the. Is it Tyler Vindu SNC?
Tyler even do a strength.
My housemate.
BSC.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, like I would say like overall, like you've definitely kind of been one of those leaders in terms of pushing the fitness and training aspects of Quidditch, and sort of as we kind of move away from more of like the origins of Quidditch as more of a nerdy sport. So what are some of the things that you do maybe with your training? I mean, you wrote here like prior to COVID, if some of the restrictions are impacting what you're able to do in the gym and whatnot. But if you were to do like a training session, I don't know like what your training schedule looks like, but like just in general, maybe like sort of some of the things you do to keep fit for Quidditch, I guess.
Yeah. Normally, and it's kind of basically I've transitioned it into my apartment now, but yeah, normally about like 3 or 4 days strength and conditioning with more of like a strength focus, and then the conditioning will be more of like kind of sprint or like anaerobic focus. I'm fortunately just my background soccer and badminton and cross country running has sort of helped my aerobic capacity a lot. So I still run and stuff, but I don't really do it a lot. I don't really like train running, and I think people need, if they can't, like I get that a lot of people hate running. So find something, if you need to build your cardio, find something that works. Swimming, biking, anything, right? Skating in this time of year. Just find something that works for you. I think, I mean, any strength is definitely going to be helpful in Quidditch, but if you can find something functional in terms of like thinking of how chasers are very much like rugby or football players, so finding something that's going to give you those power bursts. Are you going to be the one ripping the quaffle or bludger away from someone when you both have your arms on it? And yeah, anything if you can incorporate some aspects of balance and stuff, that can be all right too. I love stuff like pushing the prowler sled around or car pushes, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't do much of that right now. And because I was a cross country guy, I'm like pretty bad for sprinting, but I like doing it because it's done with quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think, usually that's like, okay, are you going to win that 50-50 ball, or are you going to be able to sprint back in time and make the heroic beat, or the strip or whatever if you're the chaser, just things like that. So I think that's something good to have in mind.
I'm hearing like from my end in my years, I'm just hearing like functional strength, like the actual like, yeah, you can lift weights, and like I have a bench downstairs myself, and that's what I've been working on. But like, it's not like the important thing for Quidditch. Like you could be absolutely jacked, but like Quidditch isn't lifting a bar. It's like I have to use this skill. I have to be strong, but I gotta match that with technique. And like, yeah, if you the balance, having like good core strength, like that's way more important than just being like absolutely yoked. Like that's
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's something that was definitely I think is very important. And I think a lot of that just comes from practices. So it's sort of tough now, but even when you're on your own, trying to get yourself in those like unconventional scenarios or uncomfortable scenarios where it's like, okay, you have to work on, throwing on the run, or like a baseball would, a fielder would field a ground ball, things like that. Because unfortunately, the pass with our current state, the pass isn't always going to be perfect, or, if a rebound gets kind of kicked out and you have to corral it, just things like that. And yeah, technique is huge. I'd love seeing any good snitches with the wrestling background, because no matter how great the seeker is, or how strong or big they are, or tall, or anything, how speedy, the wrestling snitch is just going to have a heyday with them. So.
Awesome, that's great. Bryan, do you want to talk a little bit about like some of the stats stuff that you were on a?
Yeah, sure. So I know I'm pretty sure you're a part of it. I would be very surprised if you weren't. I made a dumb little Facebook page near the beginning of COVID, and I think I called it like what was it? Canadian Quidditch Analytical Department. I'm not sure if you remember that. But
yes. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, and we just had like a whole bunch of like stat stuff, and we were just talking about like different tracking, and like I think the biggest like obstacle in talking stats in Quidditch is the fact that like we just need better film, and I think we'll get there. And I think like seeing MOQ or QPL as well with their just fantastic like just filming, having an elevated camera, having competent like filmers, make sure they get a good like span of the field. Assuming we had all that, I know you did a whole bunch of work with MLQ tracking beater stats. What do you think is like what stats would you love to look at? Like if we could just look at game film and we had enough people and we had time to kind of go over stuff, what kind of stats would you really want to like look into in Quidditch and see if there's any like statistical analysis that can be done?
Yeah, I'm not like, I really like stats, but I don't have a huge educational component in them. So
yeah.
But with that said, I think plus minus is important, and if you could find some way to integrate that where it factors in like the plus minus of your opponents and teammates too, because it's like it's great if you have these awesome stats, but you really have to consider, was it you, or was it your line mates, or was it your opponents?
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
Like, those numbers.
Because yeah, I don't think like, especially in beating, like I don't think you can judge one like beater pair off one player. It's a pair. You are literally a beater pair, and like especially with like bludger control, like as one beater, you can't pull 2 bludgers, and you got to work with your teammate for that.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
I think if there's some way you could code, like, a play or an action as, like, like, say, like a 1, 2, 3, like 1 is, like, good, 2 is okay, 3 is stupid. Like, why did you do that, right? Because I think sometimes players might be tempted to do something because it's fun or it looks cool, and it's really not beneficial for their team.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like, it's a 5% chance of pulling it off kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that could be valuable, because I think a lot of times, especially, like, I've been watching a lot of US film lately. I think sometimes, like, these names that really get blown up a lot, and maybe more so within, like, regions or, like, on MLQ teams or something. Sometimes you watch them and you're like, oh, I don't know if, like, is this person that good, or are they just, like, whack you in and inflate alarm for 2-man, and then you watch like 5 or 6 plays and you're like, wow, they only made a 1, like a great play 1 out of those times, and the others were like.
Yeah. Well, like, I watch or I listen to, and I don't think he's posted a podcast for a couple months now at least. I'm plugging a Great Lakes Quidditch podcast, Homes at Homes. And
yeah, that's a good one.
Love the guy. And I think Matt, I can't remember his last. Yeah. He's phenomenal. Great listen. I recommend it. But he had a player on Indianapolis. I can't remember his name right now. Tyler.
Just describe it.
He is a human wrecking ball. He is everything you want in a point chaser keeper combo. He's amazing. I'm gonna look up his name right now, but he talked about, he's the coach of Boom Train. And
is it Nathan Digman?
Nathan Digman. Sorry, that's exactly. This guy's amazing. Absolutely, like, I hated playing against him and loved it at the same time, because I was like, I want to steal every single move that you were doing, but I do not want to have to defend against this. This is terrible. I hate myself right now. But he's incredibly smart. He talks about it in his episode that he's on. But a lot of it goes into, like, they looked at, like, the statistics of, like, okay, if you're doing a 2-2 defense and you're going up against that, well, what's the way to beat that? And really, it's make a pass to the side, like to the wing, and then make a pass over to the, like, opposite, rather behind the hoops or in front of the hoops, the opposite side, because you're pulling the beaters over one side where there's no defensive coverage, and then you get it over quick and make one quick pass, and it's like a 75% chance of scoring. And it's like, statistically, like, that makes sense. Unfortunately, they got blown out. I think it was like 140 or 200 something to 0 in the semis 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, whatever it is now. Last time US, like, Quidditch Cup actually happened. And
who's that against?
Texas Cavalry, I think, which is, like, the best team.
Okay, Boom Chain and Cavalry. Okay,
yeah. So it was just like they got completely shut out, and they changed the way they played, and I think they were on a much better pace, and I think they would have done better this year. But I think it's interesting to look at, like, when he talks about it, it's like, it's not always playing pure statistics. Like, okay, Mario Nasta and Leanne Dillman in the States for MLQ, they had, like, a bludger control percentage that must have been, like, over 80 or 90% in the MLQ final. It was ridiculous. But, like, the game was still super close, and they did really well there on, but that didn't mean that they were going to be invincible. Like, teams were going to, like, Austin was going to score on them. But I think, like, with the whole statistics, it's great to look at, and it's awesome in the picture, but you got to, like, analyze every aspect. Like, chemistry is a thing. luck is a thing. Like, it's slightly cloudy out, and I play better when it's sunny. Like, there are things that, like, that sort of stuff is never going to explain. And I love that stuff, but I don't think I could ever reach that level with Quidditch. Given how much I still would love to, but yeah, it's I know you did some beater stats way back, and I just like talking stats and thinking about like how interesting that stuff is, but it's so complicated with a game like Quidditch. It's so hard to analyze.
Yeah, what I learned from that, I think that was with the 2018 season with Rochester, and I did the stats for the series. I think what that helped sort of like confirm with that, small sample size and stuff, but like generally I think the beaters with the better percentage of beats made were, better players, you could say. Because they had the beats broken down into like short, medium, and long range. So short is basically like a tap. So usually people aren't missing those, but I guess it could be swatted, or you could go into tap a seeker and then they jump out of the way the last second. The mid range was, I guess, like 2 to 8 yards. So we're probably where like most beats versus another beater are made. And then there was like 8+ yards, which is, it's not a lot of people are making those beats. And usually when they do, it's going to be at like a still target or like a desperation play.
Mm-hmm.
But even for something like that, like
I'm not sure if we lost.
Again, I was just looking at lots of stats, but yeah, they're, those who are baseball pitchers are making those really long beats.
The Devin Dutts of the world.
Yeah.
But
I think turnovers are really important too.
Mm-hmm.
Are you creating a turnover with your beats, or just as a chaser kind of thing? I think that's a really important thing too, because you want to obviously create a lot, because it says that your defense is capable. Again, let's exclude the fact that maybe the opposition is fumbling the ball or something. And then it also, is your offense sound enough that you're not the one making a foolish pass where a beater's right by the unmarked chaser kind of thing, right? So,
absolutely.
I think turnovers are certainly something that should be taken into consideration.
I know a couple of years back when I still played for Guelph, I went through our entire season that I had film on and did stats for all the chasers. And I just did beater like timing and plus and minus. But I think one of the interesting things I saw was we had a very grit and grind kind of third line, like Ryan Yee, Calder Schweitzer, and I can't remember the other two. I think it was our rookie player who only played a year, who was big and strong, and then one of our female players on there as well, I can't remember who, but they were very good defensively. But like that line wasn't always great offensively, so they didn't have a ton of pluses, but like their minuses were like 0. They never got scored on. And it was interesting because I made this weird stat that I called happening rating. And it was like, I don't remember the exact formula, but it was like the amount of pluses plus the amount of minuses, like the amount of times goals were scored, basically, divided by another number. And I can't remember, maybe it was the pluses divided by the amount of times scored on or against. But I think what it showed was like, you could have a team like me and Denver when we played our lines. We scored a ton of goals because we just rushed through people and pushed through these big dumb keepers who just do our thing. But like, then again, teams would just go fast break on us the other way, and it's like, okay, we play run and gun. But then there was the complete opposite of a team that like slow balled, thought it through, scored a goal, and then they locked teams up, and it was like both work, but like. If you score and immediately give up a goal, you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You just put another point on the board. So, like, I don't know. It's interesting to like think about this stuff, but we need some like any still kids in university, people still in university. We're going after like masters or anything. Like, There's your thesis project right there. I don't know what prof was going to approve it, but Quidditch stats.
I think that with that you could even branch into. I mean, I don't want to get too off track here, but at least in like a fantasy tournament, if not in some maybe practice or something, I'd love to see teams, especially with like the current pace of play and how teams just really take their time bringing things up, switch to like or have an option of a box lacrosse style offensive defense. So your example, your third line that's defensively consistent, they're making the stops, and then you and Denver are jamming the dunks, and maybe you have some transition players that are good at both, or like sometimes you're forced to do both because of a quick transition from the other team. But I think there's time, a lot of time, especially like if you think of a goal, shooting it way out the back and the goal ref's not paying attention, whole offense busts their butt back to the bench and you can get your full sub.
Yeah.
And you could even have beaters doing something similar. Like if you have a beater that's more defensively sound versus like if you want like a wrecking ball to come run a 1.5 on offense kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, it probably applies more so for chasers and stuff. And again, it's not like you would necessarily want, hey, like offense, you guys only work on offense in practice kind of thing. But I think just if you really want to like specialize. Because, I think we've all seen, if for anyone watching film or just even in games, like you said, there's players that are certainly a lot better at one than the other, right? So,
well, talking
on that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Gabe.
No, I was just gonna say, like, on that point, like, where did you kind of see Quidditch going then in the next few years? I know it's pretty ambiguous, but like, where, like, given all the things we've talked about, like the stats and the specialty lines and all that kind of stuff, like, is there anything that you kind of see Quidditch going towards, like pro league perhaps? Like, I don't know, but
who knows? Like I mentioned the name change earlier. I think that'll be a big thing. Otherwise, someone just has to make the right connections with like their local community partners and just really pump things up. So I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I think the Harry Potter appeal is kind of done now, sort of thing. So we just really have to brand it as a sport. I think it's Harry Greenhouse that just is like, do you like sports? And then that's how he gets people in, rather than saying like, rather than talking about Quidditch or Harry Potter or anything, he just talks about the aspects of the sport kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, I think having the socials can help bring back that fun component too. So it's not just like nose to the grindstone, if you don't win, you're worthless kind of thing. No, like I think that community social aspect is really lacking, especially in Canada now.
We can't all be as fun as you, though, Scherger.
No, that's fine. People have their own limits and whatnot, so that's cool. I always remember like this is like certainly going to date me, but hearing about the kind of like first generation or maybe second generation, but like the prime Carleton Ottawa days where they're going to the US for tournaments. And it's not like these weren't students that had a lot of assignments and tests. They were just studying on the bus rides, studying on the plane, probably studying when their team wasn't playing,
Yeah.
So I think it's about, it's like, do you want to make the sacrifice? And I think if you build a culture of, hey, this is what we do, then awesome. But if it's like, okay, there's a tournament and then social, but no one's going to go, and then you go back home, then people aren't going to be looking forward to it. They won't do their things in advance, or they won't be able to organize things as well. So
I know I was guilty of it, of like, oh, I can finish this assignment when I get back from the tournament and then go to sleep and then finish it the next morning. But like, yeah, I think if people, and like not blaming this generation of students or anything, I've been out of school for almost 4 years now or something. But like, yeah, you gotta, like, us playing Quidditch, it's a privilege. Like we're lucky to do it. It's fun. Some of us have jobs now, we're older. But like, if you want to play, you gotta make the sacrifice of like, okay, I know I gotta get my stuff done a little earlier, and that's just how it is. You don't have to submit your assignment. You're just gonna get a 0. It sucks, but like, you get it done earlier and you get that grade, or you just don't go to the tournament and you do it on the weekend. Like, you can't expect to just skate by and it's like, no, I'll do it whenever. Like, work hard, get results.
That's right. I think we'll see more, hopefully more, I don't want to say like self-sacrifice, but just people stepping up to volunteer. I think that will help. And I think especially for older community members like us, or like ones that have been around for a while, you know, like, okay, who's got a camera we can use or borrow? Who's got a truck and a ladder so we can get a better filming angle? You know, like, I think we're realizing if we have to ever do another quarantine or pandemic or something, we need more film to watch, because I think we're running out of things to analyze, right? Like,
there needs to be another podcast somewhere talking Canadian Quidditch, but like, no, don't do that. That's our gig. We got the market saturated already.
Mm-hmm.
But
so maybe we'll see some school teams pop up too. I know Christos and maybe some other teachers are really interested in helping that become a thing. There's a lot of, it's weird because it seems like there's a lot of support and a good potential for growth there, but then there's still like the red tape of the injuries and the lack of history of Quidditch even. So as soon as, I mean, even if it's non-contact, there's still like their insurance policies or whatever aren't going to be able to just easily accept it as much as we'd like them to. So
absolutely.
Or parents will like disown their kid.
Awesome.
All right. Do you guys have any other questions you want to throw at Scherger you can think of?
No, it's a pleasure having you, buddy.
Yeah, a lot of insights.
Yeah, thanks so much. Looking forward to hearing the future episodes and hopefully see everyone sooner than later. Maybe you get a little Ottawa-Toronto Super Smash in the summer. Or some sort of fantasy, something.
Get your vaccines, people. Get them quick.
Wear a mask. Stay distance. Do all the things so that we can eventually do the real things.
I really want a haircut. Like, I need the hairdresser to open up. So, like, please stay inside. Please follow the rules. It's bad, guys. It's really bad. Like, please.
The end is in sight. Light at the end of the tunnel, boys. All right. Awesome. Thanks so much, Scherger, for coming on again. Really appreciate it. We'll quickly plug our socials. So if you aren't following us already on our Instagram, CQQC_podcast. Nate's got us for all the social media stuff over there. We're posting about different episodes we got coming on our YouTube channel. And we'll catch you in the next one.
Yes. Peace.